right, Will, welcome to the Founding AE podcast. I'm super excited to have you on today.
Yeah, stoked to be here, Justin.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive in because I think you have really interesting experience. You're selling fractional services. A lot of my background, at least, is in selling SaaS. So I'm very interested to hear, how it differs from the SaaS world. And also, I know that you guys work with Stompbox, and Ian has said, we just talking about, we just had his episode earlier this week, right? So he had said so many good things about you. We had chatted before this. I totally saw all the things that he was mentioning about you in our conversation. So just really excited to dive in and get your experience and share it with the rest of our community. But before we dive into the specifics, maybe for those that aren't familiar with you, you can share a little bit about your background, your career path, and how you landed at Milestone.
Yeah, great. So where my career started, I graduated from Purdue in 2022 with a writing and PR degree, so kind of double degree there. And I got involved with this organization called OR, which is kind of like an early career, post-grad jumpstart to your career. It helps you develop faster, build a social and career network for young professionals. That's how I landed the job at Milestone. But I started in onboarding and writing marketing blogs for them. How I got my time in business development, I had a little extra time on my plate. I volunteered to start doing some outbound. Eventually, the predecessor salesperson before me moved on, and they kind of cross-promoted me to jump into the business development role, which I was eager to take, really excited about with Milestone. And so now I've been doing that for about 2.5 years in this role with Milestone.
Very cool. And that's really interesting coming from like a PR marketing content background. Actually, I went the other way, where I started in sales and then went the other way. There was a lot of things I had to learn, and I was like, man, I wish I knew this stuff, because I think it can help in the sales side, right? In terms of writing, a lot of like my outreach, at least right now, is email, LinkedIn based. And then, as you know, I create a lot of content. So that's super cool to hear you went the other direction. Maybe for folks that aren't familiar with Milestone, you can just quickly give us a little overview. Who are you guys? Who do you serve? What do you offer your ICP?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So Milestone, we do fractional back office services. And what that means to us is we help small business owners, so think under 30 million, under 50 employees is kind of our sweet spot, that are looking to do bookkeeping, controllership, even up to CFO services, which is kind of more of our bread and butter. And then we do fractional HR and payroll services for our clients. And what we're really trying to do is, before you need that full-time hire, or if there's a skill gap that you have, even with a full-time hire, we can plug in one of our team on a fractional basis and really improve what you're currently doing, and hopefully bring some process and a little more multi-level step to your accounting than what you would get maybe if you just hired a staff accountant, or if you just hired a CFO. Then we can kind of bring all three levels. And the same thing goes for the HR side.
Yeah, and as we were mentioning earlier, you guys work with Stompbox. For those that haven't listened to the previous episode, Stompbox, really interesting service, especially for somebody like myself that has this podcast, right? That's how we actually connected with Ian. They're working with founders to lay the foundation for that first sales hire, because we know it's a really critical hire. There's a lot of mistakes that happen in that process. And everybody that I've talked to on this podcast as a founding AE has talked about that challenge coming in. There's no foundation. Usually the founder is sort of doing sales and having some success, but they don't have a way of articulating why they're having success, or there's no process to it, and they're kind of given the keys and trying to figure it out on their own. So you're the first person that I've met that actually, I mean, I'd love to hear this story, but it sounds like there was some foundation there. There's some, I'm sure, still stuff to build, but there were some building blocks. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, you said you transitioned from another role. What was in place? What was that onboarding experience like, and sort of the ramp up process for you?
Yeah, so the partnership with Stompbox kind of came at a perfect time for Milestone. I'm actually sales hire number 3. So Milestone started at 2020. We've had 3 different people who filled more or less what role I'm currently playing. But instead of trying to fill the role with someone who has experience in sales, they decided, hey, Will knows our team, he knows our culture, he knows our product and our service really well, but he doesn't know sales. So why don't we bring somebody in who can ramp him up on the sales element, lay that foundation, and then he already can bring what experience he has in the sales. So as a part of my role, I was reviewing every new client call anyway. So I was hearing a lot of the talk track, hearing about how someone who had experience in sales but not necessarily in building a sales function did it at Milestone. We brought on Stompbox, and they gave me the confidence to scale really quickly. So I started in November of 23. It was kind of when I started to take over, really starting to ramp up in January of 24. Our difference in just inbound close rate between November of 2023 was like 15% of deals that we were closing. It jumped to 37 in 2024. It stayed at 35 in 2025. And I credit that 100% to just the foundation that Stompbox kind of laid for me, just on how to run a good sales meeting, what follow-up looks like. They brought some tailored processes that they had known or run in the past and brought it to being a founding AE, and brought it to me. And I was just hungry to learn, ready to take on a new role. Didn't have any, bad habits or biases. So I could kind of just absorb it like a sponge. And it worked out really well for Milestone and our team. And it's been fun for me. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and I think you hit on some points here about some of these traits that make a good early stage salesperson. A lot of people think, and this is something I actually talked with Ian about, think, oh, you got to hire that experienced salesperson, and oftentimes they might hire even too senior, right? Somebody that's maybe not willing to roll up the sleeves and do the work, but that has the track record and, the logos and stuff on their LinkedIn profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
But actually somebody that's curious, driven, eager to grow. And in your case, I think huge win is somebody that knows the customer in and out, their problems, what they're trying to solve, what success looks like for them, and the product, or in your case, a service, right? That you're offering, and how to position that service. I would take that any day, those traits, over somebody that has the logos, right? So very cool to see that they identified that, and obviously it's proven hugely successful with you.
Yeah, and accounting is nuanced, and people come in for different reasons, and it's so hard to be able to cover all the nuances while you're also trying to learn the sales process. So learning the product, establishing a process, doing all those things would have been chaotic. So I was glad I had the product piece that I could just bring into Stompbox's experience with the process, and it's tailored nicely. I mean, I'm still improving, still getting to be hopefully improving my close rate, being a better salesperson. But yeah, I think you're exactly right that that the curiosity is ultimately what helped me win faster and scale quicker.
Yeah, and when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned that a lot of your sales or a lot of your leads come inbound or through referrals, right? This is another thing that I think is different about your experience than a lot of the people that I've talked to on this podcast. A lot of them are number one priority is outbound prospecting. They're not getting a lot of inbound yet. And when they talk about how they structure their day, it's all I gotta, come in the morning. I've got my lead list or my target list, and I'm going outbound using these tools and so on. So I'm just curious, for a business that has all this inbound and referral, what does your day look like? How do you structure your day? And what are sort of the high leverage activities that you're doing? And then also to just add on to that, how do you think about outbound? Is it something that you're starting to think about? Is there okay, we've got this motion down for the inbound and the referrals, and the close rate, as you said, is really high. Now to get to the next level of growth, is outbound something that you're considering?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, outbound is something that we consistently try and fail with. So I'll kind of answer that part of the question. and as nobody's. Some people are great at outbound, but I'm definitely not, and we're continuing to iterate. The tricky part about accounting services, and the reason why we get a lot of referral leads, is because it's a very trust-oriented position. It's someone in depth with your finances, or HR, on the other hand, is someone integrated with your team. You don't want to just necessarily take a random cold email. Even other accounting firms don't do a lot of cold outbound reaches. They're trying to build relationships. So what outbound that we found has been more successful is almost intentional networking or partnerships or centers of influence with us, not necessarily picking up the phone, making sure I have my lead list. We've done a little bit of that, but it's really hard on the surface with outbound and accounting to make sure that they fit your need. With the service-based businesses, you want to make sure your people fit their people, and that's hard to get, just based on their LinkedIn posts or their website or a couple stats about their company. So it's a little different, and something that we're still trying to unlock is how we can do outbound the best. But we really try to lean into the people who do give referrals, and our marketing as well has done a really great job for those entrepreneurs who don't have a connection to an accounting firm that they like. We've found some good success in driving leads that way.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
How I think about structuring my day. I really try to, well, it's all meeting based, just like anybody else. So, the meetings are what take my priority, and deals already in the pipeline take my priority. I think that's one of the tricky parts about being the sole AE or sole salesperson is you do the outbound, the inbound, and close the deal. I'm working it all the way through close one. So it can be really easy to forget outbound because you have a pipeline, and then you finish the pipeline, and then you need to do outbound because you have no pipeline anymore. So I think it's something I'm still learning to do and struggling with. But I try not to think of my day as productive. I try to think of it as how can I humanly and respectfully reach out and solve someone else's problems and be helpful and respectful first. And then as I get good at that, all right, now that I've gotten good and done this really well inefficiently, it's taken me 10 hours to land this one outbound client. I did 10 hours of research on them. How can I now do that more effectively? So I think of it as almost like a tertiary goal on mine. It's how can I be respectful through any sales process, whether it's outbound or inbound? How can I make sure that I'm being helpful and detached from the outcome? And now how can I do that efficiently?
Makes sense. And I think you actually hit on a point that it really resonated with me. I was thinking back to when I was an early stage seller. I used to think of it as this wave, right? And I was my own worst enemy in a way because again, I would spend all this time generating all this pipeline, then I'd close all this pipeline so that, and then the wave would crash and suddenly I'd have no pipeline, right? And it was closing deals were great. Obviously that's the end goal, but it was also painful to then be starting from the ground up. And I think referrals are a really great way to fill that, right? It's a way during the sales process or as you close the sale to kind of tee up the next opportunity. But I've seen people struggle with referrals, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's feeling awkward asking for the referral, or if it's giving the right incentives or feeling like you're giving the right incentives to the customer to provide that. So I'm just curious, any advice on that front on when to ask for the referral? Maybe when do you guys ask for the referral? Is it something that you proactively ask for? Is it more organic? If it is something that you proactively ask for, how do you ask for it? Are there any incentives that you give in order to prompt that referral? Just curious if there's any tidbits there that might help others, that are thinking about referrals as a pipeline generator.
Yeah, we do a mix of organic and incentivized referrals. And so to us, I would say actually most of ours come in an organic way. And the way we being the founder has done a really good job. Our founder, Tom Gabbert, has done a really good job. Is just making the right connections locally and making sure goals are aligned, that again, we're detached from the outcome. So whether it's a lawyer or a business coach or whatever it may be, that they know that we're going to serve their clients well if they refer them to us, and we're going to give it our best effort and say no if it's not a good fit to us. I think that's really important, that they trust that we'll say no if it's not a fit to us, that we have that respect for the client. So we've gotten a lot of people, so that when the conversation comes up in the small business CEO circles, in those groups where people are connecting, hey, I need a good accountant, or I need to level up my accounting, that people think of us in our experience. Now we also do a first year partner kickback is one of the ways that we where they get a certain percentage of the first year's billable dollars that we send to the prospect if they close a deal. And that incentive structure has worked for us, but we find that if you're incentivizing referrals, we almost incentivize it as a kudos to them, but that's not why they're incentivized to refer. They want to refer because whatever reason that they're in front of that person, they want to help them out. And then it's a bonus. When it becomes over incentivized, then you get the wrong people in the door, and then you struggle with referrals a lot more. So we're just trying to get in front of people who have the type of client in their network that they're trying to work with. So lawyers of startups, because we're big in the small business space, venture capitalists, investment bankers, people who generally want their finances to be good and strong. And so when they hear someone who says, my accountant's not doing a good job, or this is too much for me now because my business is starting to grow, hey, call Milestone.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I'm curious, as you're talking just then about some of the personas that, or the industries that you're focusing on, events, does that play any role in your go-to-market strategy at all? I know you mentioned also partnerships. Maybe you can touch a little bit on that. Is it feel like maybe events might be an interesting angle?
Yeah, it's actually kind of our 2026 goal is to dip our toe a little more into events and workshops, attending events. We found, and I feel like this is obvious, but I didn't learn it until I did it, that the big events are tough and the smaller events are a lot easier. The coffee, the local coffee that somebody hosts, the CEO group, the whatever it may be. There's a venture capitalist of Indianapolis, the local chambers of commerce. Those events are much better for us, we found, than necessarily the conference of the year that comes to Indianapolis, which is where we're based, or Carmel. So, or even traveling to one, that those are a lot better for us from a sales perspective. And then we still attend those events to continue to be in front of best in class technology and tools on the accounting side, like the bigger conferences, but we found that they're not necessarily, they don't generate pipeline as well for us. So yeah, we want to host our own and attend more in 2026.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. From my experience, big events, first of all, it's hard to rise above the noise, right? Especially if you don't have the budgets of the big players that have the big booths and all that stuff. Second, I don't know if it's still the case. This was my events experience was pre-COVID, so I don't know if things have changed, but what I had found was everybody there was selling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was you ended up not getting in touch with the personas that you were trying to go after. You were just there with other people selling competing solutions. And even if you had some good conversations, everybody would then go back, and then it would very quickly, it'd be, I'm behind, I'm back, in the office, and it's just hard to follow up conversations. So we never had a lot of success with those, but where we did have a lot of success was the smaller, especially the ones that we hosted, right? Like the intimate dinners with business leaders, or the coffee meetups, like you mentioned, right? Or the workshops, I think, are a great one as well, because then people are actually leaving with something tangible as well and value driven. And there's a perfect sort of bridge to a more higher value conversation than a 3-minute conversation at a booth, right?
Right.
So I think you're thinking the right way there.
Yeah, and I find that sometimes my favorite sales conversations are ones where we don't ever close the deal. We don't even talk about it, but they start to talk. They think they need our services. I'm like, no, you actually need this service from this friend I know, or this service from our partner company. And that's as exciting to me as them needing and wanting our services, is when I can just help them achieve their goal. And I'm really confident that our partner can do the same. And that happens a lot more in the small, intimate conversations than it does when you're both kind of getting a feel for each other in a booth and to see if your product or service works. And again, I think it's hard in a service-based business. You don't really have anything to show. What you show is your people, right? Your people or your service. And I can't bring my whole team of accountants to any one conference and show that they do good accounting work. It doesn't show as easily on paper as maybe a product or a SaaS tool could.
Yeah, I want to touch on that a little bit more. So again, my background is in selling SaaS. So usually the sales process is pretty consistent across SaaS companies that I've worked with, right? You've got the maybe an inbound or sort of like a discovery call sometimes initially, but the kind of the core part of the sales process is the demo, right? And there's a lot of credibility built in this demo. That's where a lot of the trust is built, because they've now seen this solution that, like, they've seen it, right? And it's like, oh, this could actually, I could see myself using it. I understand how this is going to solve my problem. And then there's obviously like maybe doing a couple of those demos again, but more tailored for other stakeholders, and then eventually the proposal, the close, all that stuff, right? When I think about services, especially some of the services that you guys offer, and you've mentioned this a couple of times, right? There's like a lot of it is like relationship, or like, making sure that the accountants that you're going to be providing them as a fractional partner, vibes with them, I guess, or like, is qualified, feels like they know what they're doing, right? And all that stuff. So how do you do that, right? Like, without this demo as the centerpiece of the sales process where you're showing a product, what does your sales process look like? And what is maybe your demo, right?
Yeah.
Your milestone piece there, where that trust is built, that credibility is built, that excitement and interest in, has been established to then push through the rest of the sales process.
Definitely. Yeah, this is a good question. So high level, our sales process is typically a qualification call with just me, making sure that we're, high level aligned, but it does set the expectation for the rest of the call. So that's my goal, is make sure, I can help you, and you're looking for the right thing for us, that we're the type of business that you want to be talking to. But also, how's the rest of the sales process going to go? Set expectations for pricing early on. We want to talk, our philosophies, we want to talk money early, because we don't want it to be something that just comes at the end and then all of a sudden you get smacked in the face with something you don't expect. So money is a disqualifier that I try to put out early on in the conversations as well. The second is a conversation with me and a subject matter expert. So whether that's a CFO, one of our technology team on the accounting side, or our VP of HR, they're talking with someone, a subject matter expert who's going that next level of depth. And then we pretty much go to proposal. Where I think I don't have any experience selling SaaS. So where I assume the difference is they're kind of buying you, like they're buying me in a sense, and what I'm saying and my believability and my credibility. I don't have necessarily, a product that backs up what I'm saying that we do. I only have me saying that I do it, and that we do it, and we do it well, which is somewhat intimidating. So our demo a lot is knowing their problem and already having a pre-planned solution to it, which is, in a lot of ways similar to SaaS. So making sure we do the proper discovery to understand what their problem, what their critical buying 1 or 2 points are, and then carrying that through as a thread so that they understand that our processes, the way we do accounting, will solve that. And then I like to back that up with some sort of collateral, like a pitch deck or something, so it doesn't look like I'm just making something up. So one example would be, a lot of accountants sometimes can be bad about timeliness in a month-end close. So I show that we have a structured process that and a mutual expectation timeline between when we're going to get stuff done and when you need to provide us done in order for that close to be done on time. And so when they see that, okay, part of getting a close done on time is in my hands, maybe they're like, I'm not doing that for my current accountant, and that's why I'm behind. Or they're like, okay, they have a structured process. Now this is where it comes together. And I know that if I do my things done, that they have a process to get their things done. And I can have confidence that our books are closed by the 10th of the month or whatever it may be. So that's kind of one version of the demo. The other thing is reporting. A lot of times people want to see how we report on their financials, and that is a differentiator for us. We put a lot of customization into our reporting and our forecasting. So we show them what that physically looks like. So it's not just talking about numbers and graphs and stuff. So we do picture that for them.
Yeah, makes total sense. One thing that you mentioned that actually caught my attention was, and I started thinking about this, is in SaaS, one thing that salespeople often struggle with is creating a sense of urgency.
Mm.
Um, you know, unless you're in a specific industry where there's a particular milestone in place that you need to have the solution up and running for, a lot of the urgency that you have to create is artificial in a way, right?
Yeah.
You have to create it yourself. Like right now, every sales rep, we're in December for anybody listening to this, every sales rep is trying to close deals saying, if you want to get ramped up at the beginning of the new year, you have to close, like we have to get this deal across the finish line now. It feels like in some ways, especially on the accounting side, there might be some interesting uh, dates or, I guess milestones. Maybe that's why the business is called that. That you can latch onto from a sales perspective to pull these deals across the line and create a sense of urgency. Is that accurate? Would you say?
Yeah, the urgency, oftentimes, if they're ever reaching out or if they're ever feeling it, they're feeling something within them. So what they actually don't need is the urgency. They need clarity on why that matters. Is like
Yeah.
clarity on when we get your solution and what changes for me. Like, does it really matter if I get better accounting? What in turn comes? And so what we often say is, you have peace of mind with your financials. You have clarity on like you're getting meaningful financial statements. So you have a picture of where your business is going, not just always looking in the rear view mirror. You can kind of be looking through the front of your car and windshield. And so those are like some of the things that we're trying to understand for them. But usually, at least in our case, they're feeling some sort of pain that's making them reach out in the first place. Is like, I don't know where my business is going. I don't have a good sense of my cash. My accountant's late. They're inaccurate. I'm fixing their mistakes. So that feeling's there. But now how do I take that and create it into like a clear urgency and a clear outcome for them that we can then deliver on?
Totally.
If you don't mind,
yeah.
There's one more thing that I think is different about services than SaaS is we are qualifying them very heavily. So
Interesting.
I am scoring them on, do they fit our team style? Do they fit?
Yeah.
Are they coachable? Are they just the right type of people that we want to work with? Because the thing I hate most hearing as a salesperson is I bring on a client and they're a good fit for all the ICP level. They're a good fit from our eyes looking in, but then our team hates working with them. And that is really hard for me to hear because I don't want to burn somebody out or, give someone's work-life balance like stress because I brought in the type of client that, doesn't mesh well with our team. So I'm getting it. That's a big part of services is I'm really making sure that they're a fit for our team. And if they're on the line even at all, that I'm communicating that early and why they might be on the line throughout and letting other people get an opinion on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because in SaaS, right, sometimes, especially products that become self-serve after the onboarding, okay, the person might not be the greatest person to work with, but once they're onboarded, it's not like you're dealing with them intimately, right? Like they're using the product. Obviously, you're doing the quarterly business reviews or the mid-year review and trying to renew them and all that stuff, but it's less hands-on, right? And I can totally see in your business how that relationship becomes even more important, right? And the fit. I wanted to ask one more personal question about you. I was looking at your LinkedIn and something stood out that you've been running Diabetes Will's Way since you were 14 years old. It just caught my attention. Wow, like something, that's a 14-year-old built and still runs today. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, the journey and why you created that, what it is. And then also if there are any things that you've learned from that or doing something like a project like that, a personal project like that have impacted your career as a salesperson. It'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that question first, and then I can talk about Diabetes Will's Way for infinite amount of time. But I think the number one thing that I've learned as a salesperson from running Diabetes Will's Way is I just have such a tremendous respect for entrepreneurs. To be able to set your own schedule and be diligent and disciplined about it, I have a tremendous respect for them and what they do. And they obviously put a lot of risk on the line where a nonprofit isn't necessarily risk. It at least allows me to start to step into their footsteps and see, all right, like if you wanted to build or scale or do whatever with, a brand, what all that effort goes into, how many times you have to try and fail and figure it out along the way, kind of trust and hope in nothing. Right. So I've gained a lot of respect, and I hope to bring that into any sales call that I have with the CEO or entrepreneur, because I really do respect whatever risk that they did take to get to their point. But yeah, the story of Diabetes Will's Way, basically, my mom and I, we raised a ton of money for a bigger organization that does cure research in the type 1 diabetes space after I got diagnosed when I was 13. And the money goes into the cure pot, and I'm sure it's going towards good things, but it felt like a lot of money to us, $20,000, $30,000 that then we never necessarily saw the fruits of that labor. And we were like, we think we can continue to raise money, but we don't want to continue not really seeing or being very clear about where this money is going. And so we built Diabetes Will's Way when we saw a gap between basically what insurance covers and the out-of-pocket costs. So for a type 1 diabetic, the average is somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 in out-of-pocket costs on an annual basis. And so we provide one-time grants to families with kids or a dependent age kid, so 26 or younger, who has type 1 diabetes, to help them cover usually something like an insulin pump or a continuous glucose monitor, which really improve health outcomes for type 1 diabetics. So that's what we're about. We've hit 500 different families helped in our 12 years of being in existence.
Wow.
It was championed by my mom for the first 10 years or so, and I've picked up the torch the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, where I'm leading the fundraising and the events and the team, and it is just so super rewarding to be able to help families to grow something that you believe in, and just to continue. It gives a little extra purpose to the working life as well.
That's such a cool story. So cool that you identified a gap, came up with a solution, and then there's a lot of overlays, I would say, with obviously the entrepreneurship story, like you mentioned, but also with sellers, right? You're fundraising and doing all that, and very, very cool. Well, this has been a really fascinating discussion. I think our listeners, our viewers, will get a ton of value from this in all kinds of different ways. If somebody is listening to this or watching this and they're either interested in Milestone, they're like, wow, that's like a really great service, we need that. Chatting with you, maybe if they're selling a service, or there's something that you mentioned that they want to dig deeper into, or maybe they're interested in contributing to your charity over there. What is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, easily available on LinkedIn with Will Oberndorfer, or my Milestone email is W and my last name, which is long, and so make sure you're looking at it when you're spelling it. Oberndorfer at milestone.inc, or Will at Diabetes Will's Way, if you're interested in hearing more about our nonprofit. Yeah, Justin, really appreciate the time and the thoughtful questions too.
Absolutely. Well, have a great rest of your day over there.
You as well.